Hi guys, it's Kelly here and I'm back with another video. Today I'm going to be using this cute little set from Spellbinders. It's actually part of a collection. There's a couple of different ones. The two that I have here are the Darling Hugs and the one I'm using is the Darling Bouquet set. They're just like sweet little girls that you can use for a variety of different things. This one I'm going to turn into a birthday card because I just don't have any. I got another video that will be coming up eventually where I just knocked out like 5 birthday cards because we've had so many birthdays lately in our family that every time I need one, I'm trying to like hunt through, could this be a birthday card? Could I turn this into a birthday card? Because I just don't have any. So I seriously need to restock on those. I am stamping in alcohol safe ink because I am going to be doing some coloring. And then I'm also going to mask her because, you know, I can't let an opportunity for a scene card pass me by. God forbid. So here, just using my normal Eclipse masking tape, which is pretty much my go-to for any sort of masking. I also really like the 2-inch wide Post-it note tape, and I use that one typically if I need like a straight edge. So yeah, pretty much just going to be, you know, doing the normal go-to things. In order to save myself on some ink, I am going to be doing a little bit of distress inking in the background just to kind of save on that alcohol marker ink, which is a little bit more expensive. So once I get my mask lined up here, I'm going to be creating a blue sky and some green grass, and then I'll add my details on top of it. I am using the Speckled Egg, which is new-ish to the distress ink line, and is new-ish to me. I'm really digging it. I think it's a super pretty color, and it's going to be a good fade-off color, especially for things like skies, because you always get this weird, I don't even know, like gapping between blue sky and green grass, because you don't want to create that like darker green, that turquoise green in between the two of them, like where they meet. So there's always like this light little gap that's a little bit lighter, and I think that the Speckled Egg is going to be a great way to fill that in. I'm using the Salty Ocean just like I normally do because it's my favorite blue. Isn't it so pretty? Yes, it is. And so just doing the sky with that, and then on the flip side, I'm going to use Twisted Citron and Mowed Lawn because I like bright colors. If you don't, there's certainly a bunch of other options, crushed olive or peeled paint, that, and even if you wanted to go lighter than what I go, you could even use like squeezed lemonade as your lightest color for your grass. Even though it's yellow, it is a pretty bright yellow, so you could definitely mix that into the Twisted Citron and still be good to go. So you can see like that little light-ish area, but still I think pretty good. So in order to just create some interest, this is not realistic whatsoever, but it's my card and I'll do what I want. I just thought it would be fun to kind of create some interest in the background. They have these smaller flowers that are included in the set, and I am using those just to create more of an interesting background. I didn't want to do clouds or anything like that, so I'm just stamping these tone on tone. I'm using the Speckled Egg because it's lighter, and it's just 2 little flowers. I put them right next to each other. There was no reason to use my Misty for this. It was much faster to just use an acrylic block. I know those are probably aren't seen as much since the Misty was invented, but I do still own some and still use them. And you could actually do all of your stamping the way that we all used to with them and still get perfectly good results. But so once that's done, I'm going to go ahead and remove my mask so I can start kind of building up the rest of my background. I'm going to do the grasses just the same way that I normally do. If you're new here and you haven't seen this before, I think I have a video where I spend a little bit more time explaining or a little bit more time showing just the grass part if you need to see that. Somewhere on here, but I do it so often that typically I just kind of speed it up. So I'm starting with my lightest color and I'm just doing little flicks of color to create my grasses, but I'm giving her a little bit of a shadow so she doesn't look like she's floating in the grass. We want her to be grounded. And then I'm leaving the lightest colors toward the top portion of the grass, and the darker colors more toward the bottom, so it kind of like fades off into the distance. That's the goal, the game plan for that type of coloring. I typically do the same, like I do 4 colors with pretty much everything. So if you don't necessarily need them. If you want lighter grass, that's totally fine. I prefer a bit more bolder color, so I use all 4 colors. You can also, in order to make that a little bit more blended and not such like wild looking grass like we had in our backyard for a couple of weeks, because it would not stop raining, y'all. It would not. It was so much rain, and then the grass in the backyard was too wet to cut, and it was like a field back there. But if you don't want something that looks as wild as this, you certainly can go back over it with the same green colors, and it'll blend it out a little bit more. So yeah, that's that. As far as life, or what we've been doing with life, like we talked about in my previous videos, we do happen to have a lot going on this summer. I think because I took like that month off of doing videos, so now I can't even really remember I think we left off at maybe Peanut's birthday, which was in May, and it's July. Oh my gosh, where's the time going? So for those of you who have asked, just to briefly touch on the baby, we are due in November. We are not finding out the gender. We're not sharing names at this point. Not that we've selected anything, but once we do, we won't be sharing them then either. And that really has nothing to do with it. It just feels like that's our family decision, and I don't want to have to hear everybody's opinions about it. I'm sure if you could understand that. So we won't be sharing those until our little babe is born and officially has a name. So, so we had Peanut's birthday party. I chose not to tell him about Graham because Graham had passed away on a Thursday. Nathan's birthday was on that Saturday. And so I chose not to tell him before his birthday. It just felt like that was going to be a better decision for us. And she wouldn't have been here anyway because she was bedridden. So it's not like he would have noticed, you know what I mean? Like she wouldn't have been there and he would have noticed. The only thing that was a little bit odd for him, but I don't even necessarily know that he thought anything of it, was that my aunt was here. So she had already come in from out of town, and so she came to his birthday party. And so I don't think he really noticed, just like Aunt Tricia came to visit. That was pretty much that. So we did make the decision not to tell him after his birthday party. So we had his birthday party on Saturday. On Sunday, we did tell him because I didn't want to keep it from him for too long. I didn't want him to feel like he was left out or last to know. You know what I mean? But so he basically we went through this explanation of that Graham had gone to be with Jesus, and I asked him if he had any questions. Kids process things weird, you know what I mean? Like they just do. So he seemed to be fine with it. Didn't have too many questions when we first told him. Wasn't like an immediate sad reaction until we went to my mom and dad's for the first time and she wasn't there. Then, he was like, "Mommy, I'm sad." Like, it's sad that Mama's not here. And he's right, it was. And I just told him, I said, it's an adjustment for all of us. We all, notice that she's not here and we're all kind of dealing with that. But it will become normal. You will get used to it, with time. You're used to Momo being here and eventually you'll get used to Momo not being here, physically when you come to visit Nana and Papa. And then, so it was probably like a couple of days after that, we gave him the choice of whether or not he wanted to come to the wake or the funeral, just because I wasn't going to make him go if he didn't want to go, but I wasn't going to keep him from going if he did want to go. So his initial reaction was that he did not want to go, which was totally fine. He was actually scheduled to be with his dad the day of the wake. So it was like, if that's, you don't want to come, that's totally cool, totally understand. And I think it made it easier for my mother, because I think when you're, a mom or a grandmother, like, you're constantly worried about other people. And my mom just wasn't in a spot to be worried about she shouldn't have had to worry about anybody else. Not that she wasn't worried about other people, but like, it was her mom. So I felt like she should have the opportunity to, do with that time, or spend that time however she needed to, and not taking care of other people. But so anywho, we ended up having the wake, and then, basically Nathan changed his mind is what it comes down to. So while we were at the wake, my ex-husband, Nathan's dad, did bring him to the wake, which was very nice of him to come and pay his respects. Obviously, he has his own relationship with my family. You spend 13 years with somebody, and you just don't stop having a relationship or whatever. So it was very nice of him to come. Nathan seemed to be fine for the most part. My best friend and my goddaughter were there, so he kind of hung out with Alexa, talked to some of the other people who were there, just like everybody else does at a wake. At one point, he told me that he did want to go up to the casket. I was very apprehensive about this, as you can imagine, because obviously when people pass away, they don't necessarily look like themselves. And so he did say he wanted to go up there. So he did, and he was fine. It was fine. But then later on, Craig told me that, on their way home, he just started God bless him. He just started crying because he was sad that he missed Momo. And, I get it, bro. We all, we all do. And so we talked about it a little bit, the next morning when he came home, asked him, if he had wanted to go to the funeral. He didn't. And then, when it was time to take him to school, he was like, no, I want to go. And really by that time, it was too late for him to change his mind, because I didn't even have anything for, him to wear. We were getting ready to walk out the door to go to school. So he didn't end up going to the funeral portion. He just went to the wake. About 2 or 3 days after the wake, he kind of had some more questions, which he's always encouraged to ask questions if you have questions about things. I never want him to feel like he cannot come to me or Eric or his dad or whatever and not have his questions answered. Go back to the card for a second. So here, this particular dress does not have pleats in it, but I wanted to give it some movement. And in order to do that, I decided that I was going to add a little bit of texture. That's the little triangles that you see at the bottom. When doing the little pleats, so the darkest part of the triangle the middle part of the triangle should be the darkest, and then it will get progressively lighter, and that's going to give you a more rounded look, so that your clothing appears to have a little bit more movement than just being flat. And that was the goal here. And then obviously the same rules that we always follow. If it's tucked behind something, there's a shadow. If one object lays on top of another, there's a shadow. Those rules don't change. So anyway, it was a couple of days later, and he's typically a talker, when we're going to bed. That's when he seems to want to ask his questions. So he had asked about, again, this is what I mean when I say it's funny how kids process things. He had asked about Momo being in heaven and what it was, like there. And, so I just told him the things that I knew from reading the Bible, but I told him, I said, but I really don't, I've never been. So this is the best kind of description that I can give for it. And he goes, well, what do you eat when you're in heaven? And I said, well, you don't eat when you're in heaven. And his response was immediately, so she's starving? Like, no, buddy, she's not starving. Like, you don't need to eat when you're in heaven. It's different than, being here and where you need it. And so, like, but his little brain just went immediately to the fact that, like, his poor mama was up in heaven starving. Like, that's not what's happening. And then we talked a little bit about the fact that she did look different. And the best way that I could think to explain it to him, which is what I genuinely believe, is that you are a soul who has a body, and your soul is what makes you who you are. And so I just explained to him, like, her soul was already in heaven with Jesus. And so that's why she didn't look like herself, because the things that made her mama were already in heaven. And that seemed to go okay. So that was all good news. I told you I had a little bit of a funny story about her funeral. So we think that there was possibly that her funeral was crashed by a stranger. We're not positive. So this is just the scenario. I will give it to you. And you can make your own determination. Like, I've heard of wedding crashers, never funeral crashers. So this woman came to the service, and like after the service, so I'm sure you all know, if you've ever had a death in the family, like, the funeral's the worst part. The funeral is your final goodbye. The funeral is where everybody is a mess. It's very personal. And so typically for my friends, like, unless we're super close, I don't go to the funeral portion of it. I go to the wake, I pay my respects. But I don't go to the funeral because I know what that looks like for other people, and I don't necessarily know that everybody wants that to be witnessed, right? So this lady comes to the funeral. She is says something to my cousin along the lines of, are you Nancy or Patty's daughter? And my cousin was a little bit taken aback, and she was like, I'm Trisha's daughter. Oh, okay. And then she said that she had worked with my grandmother at American Greetings. My grandmother worked at American Greetings very briefly, many years ago. And so, like, she's trying to, like, talk to my mom, talk to my aunt, and, like, they're obviously very much in the middle of grieving their mother. Like, no joke. Like, we had to escort me and my sisters had to, like, escort my mother out of the bathroom. She was in really rough shape. Obviously, her mom has just passed. And so after they go up, when you do the wake, people from the back file around first, pay their last respects, and then the family is left at the front. And so, like, everybody's going up there. We're in the second row as grandchildren. We go up and then just kind of wait off to the side, because you're waiting for your parents to see what you need to do. Do you know what I mean? Like, to see what you need to do. And at some point, one of the people who is in the funeral home says to Eric, like, you guys need to go out into the lobby. And Eric is like, do you see those 3 women over there? And she said, yes. And he said, those 3 women are our wives, and we are waiting to see if we're going to have to catch them when they fall apart. And they are waiting to see if they're going to have to catch their mother when she falls apart. So nobody's leaving this room. And she was like, oh, okay. He was like, yeah, like, this is just where we're at. This is where we're living at. So obviously we get through that portion of it. My aunt gets out the door into the lobby and just kind of, like, collapses in this chair. Her daughter is trying to tend to her. Me and my sisters are trying to tend to our mother, and I look over and I see this woman who's, like, totally in my cousin's, like, totally all up in her business. And so I walk over and I'm like, what is the issue? My cousin looks at me and she's like, who is this woman even? And I was like, I don't know. And she's like, she keeps trying to, like, she keeps telling mom, like, I need to I need to talk to you, I need to talk to Nancy, and talk to you, and I need to talk to Nancy, and talk to you, whatever. And she was like, I don't even know who she is. And I was like, okay, well, I will take care of it. So like at some point I walk over and I say to her, like, there is no service afterward. Like we're going to go to the gravesite, for the burial, but then afterward there is no like luncheon or function or anything. So if you need to talk to somebody, like, is there something I can help you with? And then she starts with the, like, don't forget her, don't forget your mom, take care of them. And I'm like, don't forget my grandmother. Like, I'm not going to forget my grandmother, but okay, whatever. So we go through and do the funeral service and everything. And she, like, my uncles go up to say their last goodbye to their mothers. They put their little flower on the casket. And as they're walking away, from the casket, she says to my uncle, whose name is Boyd, Elvis, I need to talk to you. That's the other brother, PPS. That's the other brother. And so she basically just refuses to leave until she talks to all of the siblings, and all of the information that she had, or all the information that she was conveying, was information that was available in the obituary and that was available from the eulogy. And it was a little bit weird because she originally, when she had talked to my cousin, like, she said, are you Patty's? My Aunt Trisha has never ever in her life been called Patty. Never. Ever. Like, so the whole thing was super weird. And then she wouldn't leave. Like, we were all trying to, like, get the flowers and gather, my grandmother's items that she wasn't being buried with, and get to the closed private luncheon. And so when she left, like, when you pulled up, you would have made a left out to go out onto, like, the roadway. Well, she went back to the, the, like, chapel. And so Eric pulled up and got out of his car, and he was like, hey, thank you for coming and everything, but this portion is just for the family, like, it's closed services. And she was like, okay, I'm gonna go. And, like, you can see that she's like, she probably lives in her car. She just has a ton of items in her vehicle. She's like, I'm just gonna make a phone call. I'm, whatever. I'm not, and Eric's like, please don't. I would like to go inside and be with my family, but it's just for family. Like, he's trying to be super respectful and, like, thank you for coming, but also, like, you've been in everybody's, like, we don't even know who you are, and you're just constantly in her kids' faces, and they've just buried their mother. And so I told Eric later, I said, the ironic thing is my grandmother, of all people, probably would have sat there in the parking lot and talked to her for, like, as long as she needed to, because that was just who she was. But in the meantime, like, while it's going on, the rest of us are so worried about our parents. Like, I'm sure you're a very nice lady, but I can't take care of you too, because I'm busy taking care of my family. And so Eric tried to step in to, like, take care of that, so that I could take care of the other things. but not just me, my siblings as well, and my cousins. So in hindsight, like, when we all looked at it after the fact, we are suspicious that possibly she was a funeral crasher and did not actually know my grandmother at all, and was hoping for, like, the luncheon afterward, because she may be, living out of her vehicle, which is extremely sad. But yeah, so you tell me what you think. Anywho, so this is the whole card. I hope you enjoyed that and the very long story time that came with it, and I will catch you guys in the next video. Bye.